Imagine achieving everything you've ever dreamed of, only to be questioned about your legitimacy. This is exactly what happened to a billionaire black woman who owns a private jet and faced prejudice when she tried to board her own aircraft. Instead of getting upset, she turned her indignation into action, making a decision that shocked everyone. She fired all the crew involved in the incident. This story isn't just about a moment of discrimination. It's an example of how to face prejudice with courage and strategy. Want to know how she turned the tables and used this episode to lead a global movement for equality? Read on, because this story goes far beyond a hangar in Miami. Samantha Johnson was the kind of person who made you rethink everything you knew about success. At 34, she hadn't just broken barriers, she had destroyed them with a clear purpose and unwavering determination. Her presence in Miami on that sunny day was a reminder that the impossible only exists until someone dares to face it. Dressed in an impeccable navy blue suit, she exuded confidence, but it wasn't the kind of confidence that shouts. It was the kind that speaks softly and yet dominates the room. It was as if every detail around her, the glare of the sun reflecting off the skyscrapers, the pulsating rhythm of the city, was conspiring to highlight her greatness. But Samantha wasn't just a self-taught billionaire. She was a force of nature. Her story wasn't about luck or coincidence, but about choices made at crucial moments. Imagine growing up hearing that certain places weren't for you, that certain dreams were too big for your hands. And now there she was, about to board her private jet, living proof that limits are often just projections of other people's insecurities. There was something deeply inspiring about her journey, a reminder that life rewards those who dare to dream big and work hard. As Samantha walked through the private airport, with steady steps and a focused gaze, there was an energy in the air. It wasn't just about business. It was about something bigger. Her every move seemed to carry a silent message. Yes, I belong here. And perhaps that's what made her so fascinating, the ability to turn every moment into a symbol of resistance and triumph. But life is a curious way of testing even the strongest, and Samantha was about to face one of those unexpected tests that reveal a person's true character. Samantha was used to being underestimated. It was almost an old acquaintance she had encountered in different forms throughout her life. But that day, prejudice came disguised in a pilot's uniform and a forced smile. Captain Thomas Sanders, with his appraising gaze and rigid posture, seemed to have decided in second that Samantha could not be who she said she was.
Are you lost, miss?
The question carried such a heavy insinuation that it seemed to echo through the empty hangar. It was as if he couldn't conceive that a black woman could own something as grand as that private jet. The surrounding crew said nothing, but their gazes spoke loudly. There was discomfort, doubt, and even a little contempt hidden there. Samantha, however, was not shaken. She knew that moments like that were inevitable when you dared to challenge norms and expectations. While Marcus, her faithful assistant, watched the scene with growing indignation, Samantha remained calm. Not because she didn't feel the injustice, she felt every word like a sharp knife, but because she knew that to lose her composure would be to give power to the ignorance of others. Sometimes the best response is strategic silence, the kind that leaves room for something bigger to happen. And as she walked away momentarily, there was something in her gaze that said, "This isn't over yet." Samantha had a rare talent, the ability to turn indignation into strategy. As Marcus simmered with rage next to her, muttering something about not letting this go to waste, she just took a deep breath and kept her composure. It wasn't that she didn't feel the injustice, she did, and how. But Samantha knew that sometimes silence was a more powerful weapon than words spoken in the heat of the moment. She made her way to the lounge with firm steps, each movement carrying a silent message.
You can doubt me now, but not for long.
In the luxurious lounge, she sat in a white leather armchair, adjusting her suit while picking up her cell phone. Her expression was calm, but her eyes shone with determination. Samantha wasn't the type to react impulsively. She planned. And at that moment, while Marcus was still grumbling about the crew's audacity, she was already 2 steps ahead. She contacted her legal team with an almost disconcerting calm, reporting what had happened in precise detail. It was as if she was mentally constructing a chessboard, positioning each piece for the inevitable confrontation. Outside, Marcus watched the crew's interactions through the window. They were laughing amongst themselves, clearly oblivious to what was about to happen. Samantha noticed her assistant's irritated look and gave him a slight smile, not one of compliance, but of confidence.
Let them. What's ours always finds a way to prevail.
She said calmly, and so, while the world seemed to conspire against her once again, Samantha showed that serenity was not weakness. It was controlled strength. But of course, every plan needs the right moment to be executed. In the comfort of the lounge, Samantha began to weave her strategy like a true architect of justice. Every call she made was precise, every word she uttered calculated. Her legal team, already used to the businesswoman's firm stance, didn't need many instructions to understand the seriousness of what had happened. Meanwhile, Marcus, still restless, looked out of the window and saw the crew acting as if nothing had happened. Their arrogance was almost palpable, and he couldn't wait for the moment when Samantha would reveal who she really was. But Samantha was in no hurry. She knew that justice done in haste is rarely effective. Instead, she concentrated on lining up the details. Every step needed to be thought through in order to not only resolve that specific situation, but also create a greater impact. After all, Samantha wasn't the type to tackle small battles. She always aimed to transform the system as a whole. As Marcus watched her unwavering focus, he couldn't help but admire the way she turned adversity into opportunities for change. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, tinting the sky with shades of orange and pink. It was almost ironic how such beautiful scenery contrasted with the ugliness of the prejudice Samantha was facing that day. But perhaps it was a reminder, even in the darkest moments, there is beauty waiting to emerge. And Samantha knew that better than anyone. With a slight smile on her face, she hung up the phone after her last call and said quietly to Marcus,
Now just wait.
But what exactly was she waiting for? Well, that would soon become clear. The moment Samantha had been waiting for had finally arrived. After a long wait, Captain Thomas returned to the lounge, but his posture was still full of arrogance. He still didn't seem convinced that Samantha had any right to be there. With a tone bordering on condescension, he reaffirmed his belief that she could not be the owner of the jet. It was as if he was trying to reaffirm for himself a narrative that had already been dismantled before it had even begun. But Samantha was not the type to be intimidated by empty words. With the serenity that only the truly confident possess, Samantha opened her briefcase and took out the documents that proved her ownership of the jet. She placed them on the table with a firm but unhurried gesture, like someone who knows exactly the impact she is about to make. The silence in the room was almost deafening as the captain read the papers, his expression slowly changing from disdain to absolute embarrassment. There was no more room for doubt or excuses. He was wrong, and everyone there knew it. It was a small moment, but loaded with meaning. Marcus, watching everything closely, couldn't hold back a satisfied smile. This was the kind of victory he knew Samantha cherished, not just for the personal validation, but for the greater symbolism. When the captain finally looked up from the documents, Samantha simply said,
I hope that clears up any confusion.
Her voice was calm, but loaded with authority. And in that instant, it was clear to everyone in the room who was really in control of the situation. But Samantha knew there was still more to be done. This was just the beginning. Samantha didn't need to raise her voice or resort to threats. With the authority of someone who knows exactly what she's doing, she looked at Captain Thomas and the crew, who are now visibly disconcerted.
You are dismissed immediately.
She said, each word laden with firmness and purpose. There was no room for debate or justification. It was a final decision. The shame on their faces was evident, but Samantha wasn't there to offer consolation. She knew that sometimes you have to be uncompromising to teach lessons that resonate beyond the moment. As the employees left the hangar, Marcus watched with a mixture of satisfaction and relief. "That was epic," he muttered, but Samantha just shrugged, as if it was just another day in her life of challenges and overcoming. For her, it wasn't about revenge or humiliation. It was about setting clear standards of respect and professionalism. The crew had failed miserably on both counts, and Samantha knew that to allow them to remain would be to condone the discrimination she had fought so hard to eradicate. When the last crew member left, the space seemed different, lighter, perhaps even symbolic. Samantha turned to Marcus and said calmly,
Now, let's make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else.
because for her, every action needed to have an impact greater than the present moment. It was always about building something bigger, something that could inspire real change. And as she prepared to take the next step, there was already a new idea taking shape in her mind, an idea that would turn that incident into something much bigger. Samantha knew that some battles needed to be fought in daylight, where everyone could see. As soon as the crew left the hangar, she activated her public relations team, detailing what had happened with the precision of someone who understood the power of storytelling. It wasn't just about her. It was about exposing a reality that many people face on a daily basis, but which rarely gets any attention.
Make sure this is documented.
She said firmly, as images and videos of the incident were carefully compiled. It was more than an act of denunciation. It was a call to action. When the images were released, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Social networks exploded with outrage, solidarity, and heated debates about systemic racism and discrimination. Samantha was not just a victim. She was a powerful voice at a crucial moment. And like any brilliant strategist, she knew how to turn attention into change.
It's not about me.
She said in an impromptu interview.
It's about a system that allows this to happen over and over again.
Her words resonated like an echo, reaching hearts and minds alike. As the world watched, the airline tried to douse the flames with a generic apology, but Samantha wasn't interested in symbolic gestures. She wanted action. She wanted transformation. Every post, every comment, every share was a reminder that the power of the collective could not be ignored. And as the story gained global proportions, Samantha knew that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. Because when one voice stands up with courage, others inevitably follow. Samantha's story quickly became a watershed. Within hours, major media outlets began covering the incident, broadening the discussion beyond social media. It was impossible to ignore the impact this moment was having. The airline, pressured by the spotlight and public outrage, issued a generic apology, but Samantha was not swayed by empty gestures. For her, it was just another reminder that real change requires more than words. It requires concrete action and the courage to confront entrenched systems. At a packed press conference, Samantha took the stage with the same confident poise that has always defined her. She wasn't there to talk only about herself, but to give a voice to everyone who had ever faced discrimination and prejudice in silence.
If this can happen to me, a woman with resources and visibility, imagine what happens to those who don't have the same tools to defend themselves.
She said, her voice firm and charged with purpose. It was a message that transcended her personal experience, hitting a nerve in society. The impact was immediate and profound. Social movements began to organize around the cause, using Samantha's case as a symbol of resistance and transformation. People around the world began to share their own stories of discrimination, creating an unprecedented wave of awareness. But Samantha knew that awareness was only the first step. She wanted action. And while the spotlight was still on her, she began to plan something bigger, something that could turn that moment into a lasting movement. 2 weeks after the incident, Samantha revealed to the world what she had been quietly planning: the Open Skies Initiative. It was more than a response to the prejudice she had faced. It was a movement to transform the aviation industry. The program was announced at a press conference that brought together industry leaders, activists, and journalists from all over the world. Samantha presented the initiative with the same clarity and passion that has always guided her career. "We can't change the past, but we can shape the future," she said, while explaining the pillars of the project. Open Skies had clear and ambitious goals. Samantha announced scholarships to train pilots and aviation professionals from underrepresented communities, as well as diversity training programs for industry employees. But she didn't stop there. She also included mentoring for young people interested in aviation, creating real opportunities for those who never imagined they could be part of that world. It was a bold plan, but Samantha knew that structural changes required equally grandiose measures. And as always, she was ready to lead by example. The impact was immediate. Companies began to publicly commit to the initiative's values, while individuals around the world saw Open Skies as an opportunity for hope and inclusion. Samantha didn't just face prejudice. She turned it into fuel for something bigger. And while the first steps of the program were being taken, she was already envisioning a future where stories like hers would be increasingly rare. But there was more to come, because Samantha was never content with little when it came to change. A few weeks after the release of Open Skies, Samantha boarded her private jet for a trip that would mark the beginning of a new era. But this time, something was different. The crew that welcomed her not only reflected the diversity she was so passionate about, but also exuded enthusiasm and pride at being part of something bigger. There were young pilots who had received their first opportunities through the program, flight attendants trained to offer an inclusive and respectful service, and even ground professionals who now saw aviation as a place where they could grow. It was more than a team. It was a living symbol of the impact of change. As the jet sliced through the sky, Samantha looked out of the window, reflecting on how far she had come. She knew that this moment wasn't just about her or her personal journey. It was about the doors that had been opened for so many others. Every smile on the crew, every story of overcoming shared, was a reminder that the battles we face are never ours alone. They carried the potential to transform entire systems, inspire generations, and create lasting legacies. Samantha felt a surge of gratitude, not just for the achievements, but for the opportunity to make a difference. When the jet landed at its destination, the welcome was warm and full of meaning. People waited to greet Samantha and her team, celebrating the historic milestone that this flight represented. But for her, it was only the beginning, because real change doesn't happen in a single act. It's built day by day, with courage, resilience, and vision. And as Samantha walked down the stairs of the jet with a confident smile, she knew that there was still much to be done, but she also knew that she was on the right track to transforming not just aviation, but the way the world views inclusion and equality. Now that you know this story, ask yourself, how many times have you let situations pass when you should have stood up for yourself? How many times has the fear of facing something bigger made you back down? Samantha shows us that, even in the face of injustice, it is possible to turn indignation into action and create changes that go beyond ourselves. What would you do if you had the power to change not only your reality, but also that of so many other people around you. The truth is that life tests us constantly, and every challenge can be an opportunity to grow and inspire. So what's stopping you from taking action today? Reflect on it. And if you want to keep learning lessons like this and be inspired to transform your life, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Together, we can explore more stories that teach us to face the world with courage and purpose.